All right, guys. So we're back again with another Burnout to All Out episode. This one is fun and unique. We've got Cheyenne here today, who is a fractional CMO. We're going to do a whole nother episode on that. But today she is going to be facilitating some, I would call kind of just behind the scenes or like popcorn questions that many people probably want to ask or want to know, that she's just bringing in to ask me today to learn kind of the insights and the ins and outs of some of the different programs that we've brought to life over the last 5 years in the Burnout to All Out community. So that's what you're going to be listening in to today.
Need some effective, tactical advice that actually helps you get results and makes a real difference in your life and business? You've come to the right place. If you're finding yourself here today, it means you're getting ready to gain serious traction in your business, rapidly multiply your income and impact, and you're ready to make it happen while living all out. Guys, I'm Melissa Hinault, your trustworthy corporate dropout turned six-figure business burnout turned happy and healthy CEO of a multi-million-dollar online business. And you're listening to the Burnout to All Out podcast. On this show, we're serving up innovative growth strategies, simple implementation methods to put them into practice, and action-stimulating inspiration tailored specifically for the modern entrepreneur. Let's dive in.
So I'll just let you go.
Awesome. Melissa, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited to get to chat with you.
Yes. Thank you for flying all the way to Charlotte.
Yeah, it's so fun. Well, today I want to ask you a couple questions that are not just going to get insight into the programs themselves, but also you and behind the scenes of how you kind of built these programs, how you got to where you are, and why you structured them in such a way that I imagine would have been really helpful for you had you had programs like this when you were first starting out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, we will start with what you are probably most known for, which is the Lead Gen Academy. Tell me a bit about the inception of it. How did you get started in that area? How did you become such an expert on LinkedIn?
Yeah. It actually started back in my corporate days. So I was climbing the corporate ladder and had realized I had climbed to the top of Mount Everest and realized I'd climbed the wrong mountain. And I was in burnout and I had two little kids in diapers and I was $200,000 in college loan debt with a high power and high paying career, but also given an ultimatum with the company downsizing that in order to keep my job, I was going to have to go from covering 2 states with travel to half the country. They downsized from 12 directors to 2. And it was the one time in my life that I felt like I truly had my back against the wall and I had no control, that I had what many would call financial security, but no time freedom and no control. And it's interesting, in that moment, it was like the ugly girl cry on the bathroom floor moment of just feeling like I had no control. I'd hit rock bottom. Like, someone else is going to be raising my kids. But in moments of rock bottom is when we're willing to think radically different. And sometimes we have to be brought to that place to think radically differently. And I know now when I reflect on it, it was just a death of who I was. And it was a moment of rebirth of who I was becoming. And so it should have felt like death. It physically felt like death. But those were the early years of my entrepreneurial journey of realizing I have to be able to figure out how to do something different. There has to be a way to match this income. There has to be a way to pay this debt off and live life differently. And I can go down into a major rabbit hole about that. But where I'll land with this is I landed in still working full time, but starting to grow a business in the direct sales network marketing space around my 9 to 5. For me, it was my vehicle because I loved the nutrition. I didn't have time to eat in my high power career. So I drank their shakes because there was no time to chew. I know we talked about this. And I'm like, if I love it, and I have a known community I already had a personal brand around health and wellness because I was passionate about it. Why not share it with my community and get paid to do it? And so that's where my journey started. But what happened was, and I realized early on that there was a saturation point with Instagram and Facebook, and it was also a product-driven place. And I hit a plateau in my business of 6 figures, and I was making multiple 6 figures in corporate America. And I needed to hit that multiple 6-figure mark. And there was a light bulb moment for me where I was like, I'm over here on Instagram and Facebook. I feel like a hamster on a wheel. Like, it feels so inauthentic. I was actually at a point where I was like, if this is the way I have to generate income for myself, I'm just going to stay in corporate America because this feels so it's no better.
Yeah.
Right. But then I had this light bulb moment and I was like, I've got a doctorate in pharmacy, a master's in clinical research. I'm a leader in corporate America. There have to be other women just like me that actually want this vehicle. Mm-hmm. And maybe I should go to a business platform, LinkedIn, where I know it was my home base in corporate, and actually network over there. Mm-hmm. And actually talk about the opportunity to create a diversified income stream, a way to build a plan B. Initially, for me, it was like how to pay off college loan debt. Mm-hmm. Because in the first 18 months or less than 2 years, I actually paid off all of that debt with an additional income stream. So I'm not the person who just left corporate with no plan. I had a very strategic financial plan to get that debt paid off before leaving. But where I wanted to land here is that I quickly learned that the access to professionals, the visibility over there, the motivation, and the mindset of people over there was very different than Instagram and Facebook. And my business started to flourish. Mm-hmm. I started to realize that people are over there to network and to take radical change and to invest in themselves. And they're looking for thought leadership. And I found a lot of people who wanted to get into business with me. And my business doubled and then it tripled. And that was the point when I fired my boss in corporate America because I, for the first time in my life, had true financial freedom and choice. And it was in those early days that I hired a business mentor. It wasn't even my idea.
Yeah.
I hired a business mentor who saw the opportunity in me. She said, this thing you're doing with LinkedIn that scaled your business it could work for so many people. You're onto something and you should monetize it. You should teach it and you should sell it. And I was like, I don't know. I've never built a course. I've not been a course creator. I've never been in the realm of online coaching. I knew the e-commerce space and I knew that my method and process worked for lead generation, for business to find people who wanted to collaborate and grow businesses with me. But I'll say early on, I had to lean into the belief of my business coach who'd been there before me. And she saw this niche opportunity that I didn't. And I had to lean into her advice and lean into her faith in launching, teaching other business owners how they could leverage LinkedIn. I quickly formalized, I reflected on, okay, what's the process? And I know we were talking about this earlier. It's build on the platform, drive the platform, and then automate the platform for duplication and scale. Super simple. And when I really sat down and put pen to paper, I was like, yeah, actually, I think I can teach people how to do this.
Yeah.
And it really took off from there. I realized very quickly as people started to come in, 10, 20, we had 20 people come in, then we had 70 people come in, and then we'd have hundreds of people. And I started to realize, gosh, this method works for mortgage loan officers. It works for online coaches. It works for bricks and mortar. We've got chiropractors who are driving traffic to their front doors. And so that was the inception of the Lead Gen Academy was, this works for me. Mm-hmm. Let me formalize it, put it on paper, and teach other people how to do it. And then when it took off and other people were getting radical results, a business was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really powerful, your story of going from being in a corporate position to entrepreneurship. So many people think they're vastly different things and that if you've built this corporate career that your skills could never transfer to entrepreneurship. I'd love to hear you talk a bit about that, kind of what your coach saw in you that said, hey, you have all this experience. You can totally do this. What would you say to someone that's in that position now who's kind of going I've built this career and I don't know if I can do something wildly different?
Yeah, it's such a great question because on the outside, you would think this is so wildly different.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I think it was one of the key contributors to my success was the industry I was in corporate. I had always worked remotely from home from day one. And in corporate, the team I led was what we call geo-dispersed. So I never led a team that walked into an office with me. Mm. And also in my time in a Fortune 500, I had the luxury of being in a Fortune 500 that groomed me for what they call second line leadership, which basically means you lead a team of leaders. And so going through corporate, I had some of the best leadership training and experience in working with teams that are dispersed across the country, and learned how to have the self-discipline of working in an office at home and being internally motivated to continue to move. And so that's one or two translatable skills into the entrepreneurial place. And then again, for those of us who were in business units that had budget that we had to manage, I had a budget that I had to manage within my team. And so that was like entrepreneurship on training wheels until you actually have to manage your own P&L as a true business owner. But I think that those are just some of the skills that I was able to translate from corporate to entrepreneurship. And on the leadership piece, what I see as a business mentor now to a lot of entrepreneurs who come in with no corporate leadership experience is it's the one huge missing gap. I see a lot of businesses fail not because it's not a great offer, not because they don't have a great top of funnel strategy. What I actually see is internally the collapse of their company because their business was founded on an idea and a product and service with absolutely no experience leading a team. And they start by hiring one part-time person here, one part-time person there. They're kind of a solopreneur,
yeah.
That all of a sudden they look around and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got 8 part-time contractors reporting to me and I have no structure, no system, no organization to check in with my team. And no culture. And I find that I've just seen a lot of churn in the industry because entrepreneurs that don't have that lens from corporate don't value the education and the work and the training around leadership. They don't make it a priority like they do the next big widget and then the trending thing on social media and the next top of funnel thing that needs to be done. They totally overlook that piece. And in order to scale a business, whether it's a bricks and mortar, whether it's in corporate or it's online, you have to have some leadership and organization in place to truly run a company that's going to withstand the test of time.
Yeah, I see you do that a lot too. And you can tell me if you feel like this isn't a corporate trait, but I always wonder from you, I see you slow us down at the right moments and speed us up at the right moments. It's like you kind of know when, hey, we're moving too fast. We need to slow down and think. You think about corporate as like, it takes forever to get a post out and you're slowing down at the right places. And there's this entrepreneurial edge of, no, we can do this. Let's like knock out the launch. Let's do the thing. Let's move at warp speed when we need to. And I think, that blend is like so powerful in this space.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that also is a continued learned skill, especially in the online space with a team that's so spread across literally, like we're in multiple countries and time zones. So I personally have biweekly check-ins with everyone on my full-time team because I otherwise don't know what's truly in their workload, what's the cog in their wheel, what's holding them back. Very quickly in the online space, work can just be stacked and stacked and stacked on someone. And especially if everyone who's asking for work from them is from a different line of vision of what they need delivered, they actually don't have the global perspective I do of all the other things they have their hands in. And so it's taking that step back and being like, well, wait a minute. Do we truly have the capacity to do all of this right now? Or are we going to burn out the team and get it half done? And so it's like that constant push and pull and timing on that for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so let's say that you are someone in corporate or you're someone who's maybe you're not actually in corporate, but you're just in a role in a job and are feeling it's unfulfilling. You feel like you want to step out and try your own thing. LinkedIn might feel really intimidating if you're going, wait a second, my boss sees me here. My coworkers see me here. My friends from college see me here. It feels like an intimidating platform to show up on, especially if you're trying to kind of do similar to what you did, which was build something that's going to support you so you're not having to take a flying leap on entrepreneurship. You have that net, you have that safety. What would you say in that situation? How can you show up on LinkedIn effectively if you're feeling afraid of what are people going to think with a really valid reason of my boss could see this and think, are you leaving? Like,
Right.
you have one foot out the door. That's
Right.
not okay.
Yeah. It's a great question. I get asked a lot because I actually was not public about my business on LinkedIn public until the public post I made about leaving. But I'd leveraged LinkedIn for a year and a half scaling my business. So it can absolutely be done. A lot of people don't understand the power of LinkedIn as a search function and as a networking tool behind the scenes, BTS, in the DMs. And so in my early days, when I was looking for collaborations and partnerships with people joining to grow and scale my nutrition business, it was the search function. I knew my ideal avatar. It was pharmacist. I started with people with a doctorate in pharmacy and people in the pharmaceutical industry because I knew their pain. I knew their barriers. I knew because I'd lived in it. And I knew I had a vehicle because of their skill set that could help drive and grow a business around their 9 to 5. So
when you say you started with them, what does that mean tactically? Were you
They were my initial avatar.
Okay.
They were my initial buyer persona. And so I was very strategic in getting into the DMs with folks who fit that niche and getting into conversations with them about had they ever considered leveraging their network to grow and scale a business around their 9 to 5 that could really diversify their portfolio. It could help create a plan B. Especially with the pharmacist, I talked a lot about my college loans and getting those college loans paid off. And that resonated with the right avatar. But it was a two-pronged approach. So back to your original question of well, how can you show up
right
and create curiosity without pissing off your employers? And I think that it's a fine line and only the individual listening knows
If you feel like you're screaming into the void when you post content on Facebook or Instagram, struggling to find a sustainable and scalable lead generation process that sticks, and you just want someone who's been there and done that to reveal their secrets, then it's critical that you register to save your spot ASAP. During this live masterclass, you'll get to steal the exact strategy I used to scale my income from $0 to $1 million in just 19 months without spending a fortune on ads or suffering from burnout. Simply check out the show notes of the podcast episode for the link to register for your free spot in the LinkedIn Lead Gen Masterclass. And don't worry, even if you miss a couple of days or you can't make it to all the training sessions, we'll deliver the replays directly into your inbox daily so you can watch them on your own time. All you have to do is make sure you sign up for the masterclass before registration ends.
how strict the rules and policies are with their corporate companies. But I think it all boils down to, regardless, is personal branding. And your company can't fault you for having a personal brand and bringing value to the platform. And I want to say that again, bringing value and thought leadership to the platform, not selling. Your corporations can't fire you or hold you accountable for bringing value and thought leadership to the platform. That's exactly what the platform is for. So when I really got started with building my business around my 9 to 5, the way I leveraged LinkedIn without getting in trouble was speaking to authentic leadership, like speaking to personal development, speaking to part of my journey beyond creating the income itself was evolving to become a better human. And what was I working on personally that was going to resonate with my audience? Because I truly believe people buy you, they don't buy your product. So if you're in the feed selling product all day long, you're not going to be really successful anyway. And so for those of you who are in a corporate career, what I would encourage you to think about is, okay, what is that behind the scenes offer, product or service that you really want to offer? For a number of the people listening, you probably are looking at how can I consult doing what I'm already doing in my 9 to 5, but do it on my own? Well, then how can your employer hold you accountable for coming in as a thought leader, talking about the thing you're already doing, but doing it really well and bringing value on the platform? You know what I'm saying? And then it can create really cool conversations where the sales happen is the people who are commenting and engaging, and you take it offline and over into the DMs and you start talking about ways that you can collaborate and how you can serve more. What I started to find was people would say, they'd get into the DMs with me and just be like, I really love your energy. That thing you said was so valuable about XYZ. And that's where the savviness of sales in the DM starts to happen. So it's about being intriguing in the feed just enough to create curiosity to then find the need in the DMs where your employer is not seeing that piece of the sale. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think that's a big unlock for a lot of people listening who feel like, of all the platforms, LinkedIn is probably the one that's most intimidating because maybe your friends and family are following you on Instagram, on Pinterest, on TikTok. LinkedIn might feel really intimidating, but it's actually not. It's actually one of maybe the safest places for you to show up and get the greatest impact. And I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Yeah.
The impact on LinkedIn compared to other platforms is dramatically different.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and what you walk people through there.
So impact, first of all, before we talk about visibility, the first thing I want to say is if you're intimidated to own your business in front of your previous peers in the industries you've come from on the number one business-to-business platform, how are you going to succeed anywhere else? The thing I want to say here is like for the newer entrepreneurs, for those of you who've recently left corporate and you're starting this thing, you just have a blankie telling yourself, well, if things don't go right, I better just not be honest on LinkedIn. I better not fully stand in my power as a business owner in case it doesn't. Basically, what you're saying is in case it doesn't work out. And when you're saying to yourself, in case it doesn't work out, you're already energetically putting it out there that you don't have the confidence that this is going to succeed. You're going to go play with the people on the tricycles on Instagram and Facebook and try to play the game of selling over there versus stepping into your power as a business owner that is the number one business-to-business platform where people go for thought leadership in the industry. So the people who are like, I just can't quite own it on LinkedIn, I want you to check your confidence in your offer. Check your confidence and dedication to the success of your business. Because people sense your lack of confidence and people aren't going to buy from someone who doesn't fully believe and own in the transformation that they provide. So that's number one. So
and I would add to that this comes back to the first thing we talked about of you're probably trying to sell something, for the most part, in the area you've already built potentially a career in.
Yes.
You've built this career. Like, what is a transferable skill if not the fact that you've built a career, you know this, you do this all day long.
Yes.
If you're adding this thought leadership to the platform on a subject area that you are an expert at, then you can have confidence in it. Your proof is in the pudding. You always say that.
Totally. And so that brings me to the second piece is, first of all, you have to have the confidence to do it. Secondly, when you do, that's when your previous, if these are your relevant buyer personas, when they see you step into your power, there's no better lead generation platform because these are warm, organic leads of people who know your past history and they purchase faster. So why would you go cold market on the other platforms when you can leverage a warm market that knows you? So that's number one. And that's how my first business took off. They're like, if you are a high-performing executive who's got all of these degrees and you're owning this industry and it's paying off your college debt, I'm going to listen to you. That was like the secret sauce right there. And then as a course creator with LinkedIn, right? The large majority of people who come in are like, if she was in corporate and now she runs a multi-7-figure-a-year company, they go look at my profile. They're like, shit, she used to work at Glaxo. She used to work at these Fortune 500s and now she's doing this. So there's so much credibility just in that like career history and validation versus the abyss of who's got the most followers on Instagram or Facebook and what the fuck does that even mean? So then when we get to impact and visibility, and I talk about this a lot inside of our program, the organic reach on LinkedIn, because the amount of users is very niche. It is a demographic of people who are slightly older. And when I say slightly older, I mean the average age on Instagram and Facebook is like 23, and the average age on LinkedIn is 35. Well, that's perfect for a lot of us running businesses. We want people that have purchasing power of a certain age, and they have a higher discretionary funds to spend. They're more focused on performance, and they invest in themselves, and they're there to take action and to network. And so you take the psychology of the platform and the fact that it's a niche group. Yes, there's not as many people on LinkedIn, without a shadow of a doubt, but they're the right people. So when there's not as many people on the platform and only 4% of them are posting any content at all, and the other 96 are active lurkers, the visibility becomes ginormous. And so that's why when I first got into the industry, and it's so wild that I launched my LinkedIn coaching, it was very surprising to a lot of my mentors who are big influencers on Instagram. They witnessed me go from 0 to 1 million in 18, 19 months with less than 600 followers on Instagram, with a couple thousand friend and family on Facebook, and 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. It was like a market disruptor to see me be able to do that, but it goes back to impact and visibility. The same content I was putting on Instagram and Facebook was not being seen by a fraction of the people who are active on LinkedIn. It's just that most service-based entrepreneurs are not thinking about the traffic and visibility on the LinkedIn platform as a direct-to-consumer opportunity. They see it as, oh, it's that corporate work thing. And it's like, well, how many people are in corporate and work that are your consumer?
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And like, how easily can you get in front of them over there versus the other platforms with all the noise?
And talk a little bit about when someone opens Instagram. You always tell the story during our free training that we have about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about when someone opens Instagram, what's their behavior versus when someone's opening LinkedIn? What are they doing differently?
Totally. Yeah. So think about it. I mean, you and I, like, I don't know what your digital habits are, but I know mine are just as unhealthy as everybody else. So my phone is my alarm in the mornings. And for that, in the first couple of minutes of waking up, I'm like wiping the sleep out of my eyes and I'm waiting for my tea to brew. I'm scrolling the gram. Like, I'm just killing time. I am not there to make any investments. I'm not there to make any radical changes in my life. I'm just waiting for my tea to get warm so I can wake up. So when we think about Instagram and Facebook versus LinkedIn, it's very important to think about the psychology. The psychology of the user on Facebook and Instagram can be the same person, by the way. The same person is mindlessly scrolling on Instagram and Facebook. They are looking to check out. We've got breaks between calls. We're grabbing lunch. We're getting ready to go to bed. And we're just like not mindlessly scrolling. This is like just proven fact. Those of you listening can probably attest to this. And the time frame in which people use Instagram and Facebook is actually more frequent, and it's dispersed throughout early morning till late at night. With LinkedIn, and also the device is the phone. And so on LinkedIn, what they find is the number one device is the desktop, which means that I've already had my coffee or tea, I've worked out, I've had breakfast, my kids are off to the bus, I'm not multitasking, I've showered. Now I'm sitting down in front of my computer because I'm ready to get shit done. And I can be the same person who was mindlessly scrolling and barely able to even see through my eyes at 5 a.m. But now I am purposefully and consciously going to a platform where I'm going to connect and network and grow professionally. When you get into my feed and you're looking for me to take action, I'm much more likely to interact, engage, and by the way, the visibility is greater, like to even see it during the day on LinkedIn than I am on the other platforms where there's so much noise and the psychology is different. I'm not purchasing, I'm not ready to take any action, book any calls, learn about anything when I'm mindlessly scrolling and going for maybe a dopamine hit. Oh, how many likes did I get today? How many people saw that reel? I'm not there to network and buy anything for anybody. It's like self-centered. It's like, how did that post do today? We're not there to take action. So I guess, I don't know if that answers your question.
Totally. No, I think it totally does. And it's such a big unlock to realize not only is LinkedIn the best place to share your expertise based on whatever you're a thought leader in, at actually a place where no one is going to get mad at you because you're contributing, adding value to the platform. And it's the right buyer persona. And they're actually leaning in, they're paying attention, they're showing up on the platform in a way where they want to get value out of it. They want to make a purchasing decision. They're not mindlessly scrolling as they wait in line for their coffee.
That's right.
It's such a huge unlock. I want to hear you talk about on LinkedIn our 3-step system, build, drive, automate.
Yes.
A little bit about that. How does that work?
Yeah. So it's so simple. And I kind of put this together because I know people like systems. I like systems that are repeatable. And so it's a 3-step approach to LinkedIn where you have to start with building the foundation of the platform. You have to build your personal brand. I often talk about when you imagine your LinkedIn profile was a bricks and mortar and how do people walk into your virtual store and experience you? Like, how do you want them to feel? What emotion do you want to elicit? So when we talk about build, before the drive and the automate, when we talk about build, we've got to build the profile out. For the listeners, go Google yourself and see what shows up. Most of you, LinkedIn is going to be one of the top in your Google feed. And how do you feel about your virtual storefront when people click on it to check you out? You have to build the personal brand in a way that is compelling, that tells the story of the transformation of the products and services, not what your products and services are, but the desired transformation, and allowing the potential client to know that there are problems and challenges better than anyone else. So that's a big piece of build. Also, build your content strategy. And I know you know this really well. It's like, do you have a method and a madness to the content you're putting out? Have you gotten clear on mapping out the cadence and the sequence of the type of thought leadership that you're going to fold throughout to create the know, love, trust factor? So that's a lot of what we teach and build. And then drive is, once we've got the brand built, we drive the platform. So are you strategically growing your network with the right audience? LinkedIn is not Instagram and Facebook. LinkedIn doesn't favor you for having tens of thousands of followers. You want a niche group of people who are your ideal audience. So everybody can have a sigh of relief that it's not a game of tens of thousands. It's actually a game of the right connections. And that's all you need. I want to remind people, I made $1 million with less than 2,000 followers on LinkedIn and 600 on Instagram. I'll say this forever because I want to inspire people that it's the right network. So are you driving the right network? Are you driving the right conversations into the DMs? Are you driving the right content through real-time feedback of how people are engaging? So that's a lot of the drive. The holy grail for all of our clients as they're graduating is the final step, which is automate. So once we've built the platform, once we're driving conversations and content that's really compelling into conversations for selling, how do we automate in a way that allows us to pre-qualify these leads for only the most qualified to end up on calls with and consults to sell? How do we automate the content that goes out? How do we get back to, now that we've really created a revenue generating engine, how do we get back to expanding and leading our business as CEOs and delegating off this engine you created in an automated way? So that's really the build, drive, automate strategy. That's our ultimate goal for all of our clients upon graduation, is that they're in that automation stage.
Perfect. So I'll ask you as my last LinkedIn question.
Sure.
Coach me as if you were coaching someone who's just getting started,
Yep.
wants to grow on LinkedIn.
Yep.
What would you tell me my first steps should be?
Number one, or a couple steps? The
You can
first
give me
step?
the first couple. Yeah,
Okay.
the first couple steps.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 to 3 prong approach where you're going to get the best results. Is number one, being clear on who it is that you want to attract, because you have to drive the right traffic. And it's important to know who we're trying to attract, because A, it's going to impact how you're growing your network, but B, it's going to impact the content that you create. So if we can grow a network and in the same time frame, grow the network and create content in the feed that attracts the network, the sales start to happen. And so it's just as much about growing the network as it is creating compelling content that attracts the client. And that is the number one mistake I see with so many people who've aborted LinkedIn, because they've said, oh, I've tried it. And what they mean by I've tried it is I've taken the content I made on Instagram and Facebook and I've dumped it over there and nothing has happened.
Totally.
And it's because the platform doesn't behave that way. You have to actually grow a network. But the beauty is you can grow a niche tight network that has a massive ROI and is really efficient in scaling a business and saves you so much time. Or you can go over to Instagram and throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and see how many tens of thousands of followers you have, to cross your fingers and hope that there's a percentage of them that are even qualified to be buyers for the offer that you have.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. If I wanted to learn more from you about LinkedIn, where would I go?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think the biggest thing is just to go to our burnouttoallout.co website, because that website has our biggest umbrella of where you can go to win our next masterclasses for LinkedIn, or for our program, the Lead Gen Academy. If you want to get started, that's going to be the best place to go.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys, so much for listening in on today's podcast episode. And I can't wait for you to see my upcoming guest in the next episode. You are going to love this keynote speaker. Hey, here's the deal. If you liked this, please subscribe and leave a review. and you want the latest online business growth strategies and exclusive LinkedIn pro tips sent straight to your phone, text the word update to 704-318-2285. That is, text the word update to 704-318-2285. Can't wait to see you guys. Come find me over on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you like to hang. I cannot wait to hear how you are enjoying and applying what you're learning. You guys reach out to me over on social because I love hearing what's resonating with you. When you reach out to me and you send me those personal DMs, they really do impact the content I continue to bring forward to you. So again, come find me, Melissa_Hinault over on Instagram, Melissa Hinault over on LinkedIn and Facebook. Can't wait to see you guys over there.